Hello children, welcome to English class. This is Bindu Mol Alexander, your English teacher, and you're watching the second part of the story, The Three Questions, written by Leo Tolstoy. Before we continue our story, let's have a quick recap. A story is about a king. That king who believed that he would be successful if he knew the three answers. And that three questions which he wants to know the answer. The first question, what was the right time to do something? Second, who were the right people to listen to? Third, what was the most important work to do? And he announced the reward whoever given the right answers. The king got several answers for all the three questions. First question, what was the right time to do something? The king got that people have to make a timetable and strictly follow it. Second answer, it is impossible to say the right time. So the people have to do their work usually without wasting it. Another answer, that people have the counselors, wise men, learned men, and they will give you the advice what was the right time to do something. So the several answers for the first question. For the second question, again several answers. Second question, who were the most important people to listen to? The king got answers for the second is that counselors were the most important. Some said the priests, some said doctors, and some said warriors are the most important people. And for the third question, what was the third question? What was the most important work to do? And the answer, the most important thing in the world was science. That means knowledge. The most important work is to get knowledge, to find knowledge. Some said no, it's a skill in warfare, new technique. The others said no, it was religious worship. So the king is not at all satisfied with these answers, and he decided to meet the hermit so that he get the answers of his three questions. Hermit is known for his wisdom, and he is living in forest. And when he going to meet the hermit where he is living, forest, only the common people were allowed to enter. So before going towards the hermit's cottage, the king did three things, if you remember. The king wore the common clothes. He put off his royal clothes and put on his common clothes. He get off from his horse, and third one, he instructed his bodyguard to stay there. Don't come along with him. And he alone going towards the cottage. While he met the hermit, that time the hermit is digging the earth. And when king met, king asked the questions. There is no reply from the hermit. He decided to help the hermit for digging, and the king helped, and now he started digging. The sun sets, and at last once again the king asked to the hermit whether he going to answer or not, or whether he go back to the palace. Up to there we stopped in our first video. So we'll move, or we continue the rest of the story. That is on 19th page number, first line. Here comes someone running, Said the hermit, let us see who it is. Second paragraph. The king turned around and saw a man come running out of the forest. There was blood flowing from a wound on his leg. When he reached the king, he fell to the ground, mourning feebly. The king washed the wound as the best he could and bandaged it with his handkerchief and with the towel the hermit had. So in this 19th page number, first and second paragraph, as the king said to the hermit that whether he is going to answer or whether he went back to his palace. And then what happened? A person running towards the hermit. And the hermit said, just turn around and look who is running and coming towards us. So the king turned around and seen what he seen, what the king seen. The king seen a wounded person came and the blood flowing from his wound on his leg, from a wound on his leg. And he reached to the king and he fell down in front of the king. Seeing this, he said something, mourning feebly. That means he muttered very slowly, in a very low voice. He said something. And he fell down on the ground. Who? That wounded person. What the king did? The king washed the wound. After washed the wound very nicely, he bandaged it with his handkerchief, the king's handkerchief, and with the towel that hermit had. So what two things that king did? First, the king washed the wound very nicely, and then he bandaged with the help of his handkerchief and a towel that hermit had. In the next third paragraph, when at last the man felt better, the king brought fresh water and gave it to him. Meanwhile, the sun had set and it had become cool. So the king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut and laid him on the bed. Laying on the bed, the man closed his eyes and was quiet. So after wounded, it's cleaned, nicely washed and bandaged it, that person, that wounded person, feel better. So the king bought a fresh water and gave it to the wounded person. And meanwhile, the sun set, it become cool. It become cool outside. So the king, with the help of the hermit, they taken the wounded person into the cottage, the hermit's cottage, the hermit's hut, and laid him on the bed. So first, what happened when he fell down? When the wounded person fell down, the king washed his wounds nicely, bandaged with the help of his handkerchief and the towel, and when he feel better, the king gave the fresh water to drink, and after that, when it's sunset, it become cool outside. They carried, who are they? King and the hermit carried the wounded person into the hermit's cottage and laid him on the bed. Laying on the bed, the man closed his eyes and was quiet. The king was so tired from his walk and the work he had done that he crouched down on the threshold and fell asleep. When he awoke in the morning, he found that the wounded stranger was staring intently at him. So, after the wounded person is get inside the hut, and with the help of king and hermit, they laid on the bed and he fast asleep. He feel relaxed and fast asleep. And the king, who is feeling so tired because of the work which he done it, digging the ground, and what he did, he crouched down. That means in the sitting position close to the entrance door, he sat there and he fast asleep. When he woke up in the morning, he seen the wounded person is looking steadily to the king. "Forgive him," said the man in a weak voice, when he saw that the king was awake and was looking at him. When the stranger seen that the king awake and the king is looking to the wounded person, the wounded person said, what he said, "Forgive me." Why that wounded person said to the king, "Forgive me"? Let's see. "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for," said the king. King said to the wounded person, "I don't know you and why I am forgive you? There is nothing you did wrong to me, then why I forgive?" In the next page 20. "You do not know me, but I know you. I am an enemy of yours, who sought to revenge himself on you, as you wrongly took away my property. I knew you have gone along to see the hermit, and I planned to ambush you on your way back." In the 20th page, the first paragraph, it's revealed why he asked forgiveness to the king, the wounded person. "You do not know me." You here is referred to the wounded person. Sorry, the you here is stand for the king, not the wounded person. You is stand for the king. Me is stand for the wounded person. Okay, "You do not know me." The stranger or the wounded person said to the king that you don't know me, but I know you. But the wounded person know the king. And he said to the king, that wounded person said to the king that he is the enemy. Enemy of who? The enemy of the king. And he came there to take revenge on the king. Why he take revenge? Because the king wrongly took away his property. So for that reason he want to take revenge. And what happened? "I know you had gone alone to see the hermit, and I planned to ambush you on your way back." So he know that where the king is going. The king want to meet the hermit. And when he came back, he want to ambush. What that meaning is there? Ambush means an act of hiding and waiting for somebody and then making a surprise attack on them. Ambush means waiting and have a surprise attack on the person. So the wounded person know the king going to meet the hermit. On way back, he has planned that suddenly he have a attack on the king. That is the plan of the wounded person. Second paragraph. "But you did not return. So I came out to find you. Your bodyguard recognized me as I ran away. And I fell and I was wounded." So he is planning to make a sudden or surprise attack on the king. When the king came back from the hermit. But what happened? He did not return. Who? The king did not return. And that's why he came out from his hiding place. Who? The wounded person. The stranger, the wounded person came out from his hiding place in search of king. And as he came out from his hiding place, who seen? The bodyguard of the king seen this wounded person. And he knows it's an enemy. So they recognized. Recognize means the bodyguard recognized that this is the enemy of our king. So they recognized him. And to save himself, he ran. And what happened when he ran? He fell down, and this is the way he wounded. I should have bled to death if you had not nursed me. I wished to harm you, and you have saved my life. Now, if I live, and if you wish it, I will serve you most faithfully. Forgive me. So, this is the way that wounded person get wounded. How? As to save himself from the bodyguard of the king, he fell down and get injury. And he said to the king, I come to you to harm you, but you saved my life. You taking care of me. You nursed me. You taking care of me very nicely. And if I am right now alive and standing in front of you, it's all because of the king. Who said all these things? The wounded person. The wounded person said to the king, I am alive because you saved me. But what my intention, what the wounded person intention, want to kill the king. But right now, he want to make no enmity to the king. And for that reason, he said, forgive me. Because he want to kill the king. That's why it is when the king awake, very first thing he asked, forgive me. That is the reason behind he said that word, forgive me. And what next? What will happen when the king come to know all about his background? That this wounded person who is standing in front of me is not stranger. It's a enemy to me. It's my enemy, my old enemy. What is the reaction of the king when the king comes to know all the truth? Let's see in the third paragraph. The king was happy to have made peace with his enemy. The king was happy that at last my enemy right now who is standing in front of me, and in this situation when he wants to live with me as a friend and he is ready to serve that king very faithfully, and the king also being very, very happy that at last the enemy is now being a friend for me. He not only forgave him but said he would send his own physician to treat him and promised to restore his property. So the king happy for this and forgive his enemy, and not only forgive him, he promised that whatever the property he taken from that wounded person, ready to give back. And he sent his own physician. Physician means a doctor who taking care of that wounded person later on. So here we seen the king. What is the reaction of the king when king come to know all the truth? The king forgive him. Not only forgive, he sent his own physician and promised him to give back all his property which he taken away wrongly. In the fourth paragraph of 20th page, then the king went out and looked around for the hermit. He wished once more to beg an answer to his questions before leaving. So the king came out and again want to see the hermit, and at last he begged to the hermit that kindly give the answers of his 3 questions. The hermit was outside, sowing seeds in the beds that had been dug the day before. The king came out in search of a hermit. At that time, the hermit are outside, and what he is doing? The hermit was sowing the seeds in the beds. Beds, B-E-D-S, beds here, a particular area where we dig out, we plowed nicely, so the soil become loosened, and there we are sowing some seeds. That much of area is called beds. So here the hermit who is outside and sowing the seed, where he sowing? That particular place where they had been dug before. Who dug? Hermit and the king. Both were digging that area, okay, and it's ready to sowing the seed, and the hermit is sowing the seed at that particular time. In the 5th line, the king approached him and said, "For the last time, I pray you to answer my questions, wise man." The next line, "You have already been answered," said the hermit. So the king keep on approached and keep on asking his 3 questions answer, and the hermit replied this. What is? "You have already been answered." The hermit said, "How answered? What do you mean?" asked the king. King is surprised. "How I been answered? Do you not see?" replied the hermit. "If you had not pitied my weakness yesterday and had not stayed back to dig those beds for me, you would have been attacked by that man on your way back. So the most important time was when you were digging the beds. I was the most important person, and to do me good was your most important business." So the hermit said, "You already replied, don't you see that?" And he explained how he is answered. He explained that previous day when the king approached, at that time the hermit is digging the soil. To seeing his weakness, the king helped the hermit, and he did not go back to the place where the bodyguards are waiting there. He did not go back. He stayed there, helped the hermit for dig out the soil and making the beds, making that area so that one should be sowed the seeds. So making that bed, he helped the hermit. So that when you did that digging, that is your most correct time, and at that particular time I am with you. That means the hermit with you. So who is the important person? The hermit is in the hermit was the most important person, and the work he did is the most important work to do. That is the one explanation, one situation he described to the king. Next, one more explanation the hermit said to the king is in the second last paragraph. "Afterwards, when that man ran to us, the most important time was when you were attending to him. If you had not bound up his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. So he was the most important person, and what you did for him was your most important work." The next situation he gave to the king, the hermit said, "You remember when that wounded person came towards us at that particular time? is the most important time. When you nursed, when you attend, when you taking care of that wounded person is the most correct time. And that time, that wounded person is the most important person for you. And the work you did is the most important work at that particular time. That is the second situation that he gave, the three situations, the three answers, what was the correct time, who were the correct people, and what was the most important work. That is the second situation. And giving these two situations and explained all the three answers, and the last one he said, remember then, there is only one time, that is right now. It is the most important time because it is the only time when you have any power. The most important person is the one with whom you are at a particular moment. No one knows whether you will ever meet anyone else in future. The most important thing to do is to do good, because for that purpose alone we are sent into this life. So at the last paragraph, it is revealed that the hermit revealed that remember one thing, that is the time, the only correct time is right now, the present time, right now. Right now is the most important time, or the right time to do something. And on that right time, on that particular time, with whom you are, that person will be the most important person for you. And at that particular time, whatever the work has to be done, that work becomes the most important work to be done. In short, the present time, the present moment is right to do everything. To whom with you are, that's the right person for you. And it is good that you do always good to others. And that's why we all send to this earth, to do good to others. So dear children, a very good story it is, which reveals that importance of a time. All the time is very important. The correct time, it's now. Right now you are listening. Right now you are watching this video. That is the correct time. And who would be the correct person to whom you are with? And what is the important work? The listening. So dear children, from this story we learn that we have to do our work in right time. Each and every time it's important to you. To whom with you are, that are the correct people. And the work for that particular time, what you have to do, it's a most important work. Hope you understood the story. Kindly read the story 2-3 times and go through the word meaning of this chapter. Any doubt you have, you can call or you can send a message to the WhatsApp to my personal number. Hope you can understand and keep on learning. Thank you.